What's up, everybody? Welcome to Blue River Bow Hunting, episode 47. I have some returning guests on with me this week. I got Brayden Ware, the man of the hour. We'll get to that here in a little bit. And his buddy Phil Polston. What are you guys up to doing tonight?
Nothing tonight, man.
Yeah, same here. Not a whole lot going on. Just winding down the day, that's for sure. So
For sure, it's raining here. I don't know how it is down there south where you guys are at, but I wasn't able to get in the stand tonight. Plus, it was like 45-mile-an-hour winds.
Yeah, dude, it's been windy. I don't have the rain yet here, but
Yeah, it was coming in as I was getting off work and decided to take the night off, which is odd for me because I usually come straight home, shower, and go right back out the door. But something we're going to do a little something different tonight compared to my normal conversation on here. And I've talked to these guys and had them on before. If you haven't checked those episodes out before, go check that out. We're going to do a little tailgate talk. We're going to do a little BSing from what the three of us have encountered in the Indiana bow season so far. But I'm going to start with you, Brayden. You're the man of the hour. Sunday morning, getting it done. Let's hear all. But I want to hear every detail of this hunt.
all right. Yeah, it really starts, I guess, Friday afternoon with me and Phil talking about, what we were gonna do, because Phil is like the e-scouting wizard, like, and I've been learning from him of like how to like ID spots and figure stuff out. And I finally got on X on the desktop and was like kind of breaking some stuff down and looking at the different spots that we were hunting. And we were gonna go to one place that we had never hunted before. And the reason we were looking for spots and not just like, hey, we're gonna go here, was the wind has been weird, but a lot of like northwest wind, and Phil and I southwest wind in like almost all of our spots. And so we were kind of trying to work around that, and we've got some cameras up on some public land that we hunt pretty often, and we've had some great bucks rolling through for the past few months here, and it's just a great stuff there. So we were trying to decide where to go, and we went out with our wives that night at Harvest Homecoming, and just kind of like, what are we gonna do tomorrow? What are we gonna do tomorrow? What are we gonna do tomorrow? And kind of landed on like, let's go where the deer are, not where the deer should be. We've been back here. Phil shot his 8-point actually last season, not far where we end up hunting. So we landed on going to this one spot and basically orienting ourselves in a different way down like a creek bottom where we haven't hunted. That's where Phil's buck died when he recovered him down there. And just he remembers seeing a bunch of sign down there while he was getting his deer and all this stuff. And so, we were like, let's go do that. And so the first hunt we did up there, we went out and we set up like a few hundred yards apart, and we're looking basically like down in a creek bottom, looking at a ridge, like a really steep hill where we kind of felt like they'd be rolling through. And get back there, it's dark, whatever, and I stepped over at least 2 logging roads without realizing it, and I think Phil, he ended up setting up real close to one, but like the logging roads ended up being like pivotal to our strategy because we didn't even know they were there, and like last year when he shot that buck, those logging roads were not there. So that first morning, waking up, like the woods are waking up, and I'm starting to see like where I am and like what I'm set up around. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm like 50 yards from a logging road, and to my right I've got like a big downhill looking down at a creek bottom, and it feels super deery. Like I told Phil on the way back, I was gonna text him like, I feel like I'm somewhere I shouldn't be. Like I'm in a buck's bedroom right now. Like it feels very deery down here. And sure enough, dude, I don't know, I've been in the stand probably an hour and 15 minutes, and this gigantic 10-point literally appears out of nowhere, just walking like right at my tree at like 15 yards, staring like right at my tree. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I didn't hear him. Like I was hearing kind of all around like you do in the morning, like never could pinpoint. And I was actually like looking over my left shoulder at something else. And when I craned my neck back, boom, there's this gigantic, I mean, we're seen in person. And I had like nothing I could do. He was staring basically right at me. So I'm sitting there like kind of hoping he's going to take one way or another, or he can go to a shooting lane and get behind a tree so I can draw. And just never happened. He kind of like was coming right at me, hung a left, and it went straight beeline to logging road. And at this time, I wasn't sure exactly where that road went or where Phil was, but I'm texting him like, hey, buddy, like there's a absolute monster coming your way, ready. And just never showed up for Phil. But, you know, seeing that buck was super telling back there. And like, you know, we're kind of amongst them. He didn't get spooked by my wind or anything like that. It's just a great setup, except I wish that I was about, you know, 10 yards on logging road instead of like 50. And so that kind of like shifted our game plan. And so we went out that night and a few does and we closer together. Never really like got it to come together. But just like tons of deer activity, everything felt good. And so we stuck with that plan. Sunday morning, kind of the same thing, but you know, I picked a different tree that was a little bit closer to the logging road. Phil was kind of like 80 yards, I guess it'd be like west of where I was at, set up kind of where two logging roads like meet. It was a really good spot too. And just, you know, a deer, we're hearing squirrel, we're hearing all the main, like normal out there. And by this point we'd been hunting, you know, a lot in that time frame. So kind of numb to those sounds. I don't know how you all get, but like, yeah. When I'm first out there and I'm hearing squirrel, I'm like, oh, it's a deer, it's a deer, it's a deer, it's a deer. And then I kind of like, they're crying wolf, and I'm like just sitting there. So I heard off in the dense blow, 200 yards, like I'm at 12 o'clock, just, you know, ahead. And I was like, oh no, I'm texting Phil, like, did we just get winded? Like, and our conclusion is no, like that, we didn't think that it was smelling us and blowing because of us. So then you start running through like, why would it be blowing? Did it see a Yodi? Is it blowing at a buck? Like what's going on? And so just kind of on high alert. And all of a sudden I just heard, you know, something come crashing in at about 100 yards at my, like, basically like my 10 or 11 o'clock, looking right over the logging road. And all of a sudden I see him step out, this real nice buck, start walking my way, and kind of seeing these deer move through the area, was able to kind of be like, oh, he's probably going to cross the logging road going to this spot here. You know, he's going to pass between me and that tree there and me and that tree there. So he does, he like follows the plan, walks right in a tree. I grab my bow, he steps out, goes behind another tree. I go ahead and draw. He takes, you know, 1, 2, 3 steps out onto the logging road, and he was looking the opposite direction of me, and just kind of like a little bit quarter to broadside, 27 yards, let the arrow fly, and hits the deer, and kind of just like totally like tripped me out, because it hits the deer, and then all of a sudden I see like the neon green part of my arrow kind of like go flying through the air, and the deer took off. So I'm like, okay, so maybe I hit a tree, you know, maybe I hit under, maybe I hit his leg, like I don't know what in here, but it looked like my arrow, you know, exploded. And then not too long after, just heard this thing absolutely pile up, like running downhill, absolutely just sounded like the loudest sound around. It's just crazy. And so, you know, I call Phil, like, dude, did you hear that? Like, this is what happened. I don't know if I hit him, but he took off, and it's super loud. And he goes, did you not hear that thing pile up? Like, he's like, that thing's down there. Like, you. And
that's awesome.
So I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna get my hopes up, you know, because I saw that explode. And so we're like, okay, you know, give it a minute. Let's get down and go check out the scene of the crime. And we get there and pick up the arrow, and it was missing about 12 inches of arrow, and had a little bit of blood, like 3 drops of blood and some hair on the broken part of the arrow. And so we're like, okay, made contact for sure. We got some blood here. But, any number of things could have happened. And then and we end up, blood tracking, found the other 12 inches of arrow with the broadhead on it. And, we get down to the bottom of the hill, and the sound we heard was that buck absolutely like wedging himself into a gigantic tree that, like, we're on logging road. So there's a bunch of trees cut down, huge tree, just wedged himself right into a bunch of, limbs and stuff down in there. And I think we're blood tracking, and Phil goes, you want to keep blood tracking, or you just want to go pull him out of there? I was like, oh, there he is right there. And so pull him out, and it was really cool. And what we kind of figured out had happened was basically the arrow went in his front shoulder, just absolutely like mushed his front shoulder, went through and either hit his other shoulder blade or his leg. And when he went to run, that front leg, when he kicked back, basically just broke that arrow right off inside him. And so it was kind of hanging out the other side when he was running. And then eventually, we found it and everything. But yeah, dude, it was crazy. My first archery kill, and super cool to be able to do it with Phil right there next to me. And, he helped me through the gutting process, and, trying to figure out how to cut out the butthole and all that stuff. Comes with killing a deer. So
absolutely.
Great.
Well, for sure. Congratulations, man, for getting it done with your bow for the first time. It's definitely a rewarding, for sure. Yeah. And I know it's even more rewarding to get it done with Phil there with you, because I know that he's kind of been like a mentor to you and all that, as talked about on previous podcasts. But from your viewpoint, Phil, how did all this play out?
Man, that was because we've told the story to God knows how many people by this point.
Right.
And I'll be honest with you, I love the perspective that I have, because it's just different than I really kind of imagined it was going to be. I mean, all year, Brayden and I hung in the same tree last year, and I figured if that was going to happen, I was going to be able to watch something happen. I was a little at first disappointed that I was in a different tree, 80 yards, 100 yards away, whatever it was. But actually, now that I look back on it, it was a lot of fun, because I probably got a lot more intel by being further away, which gave us a lot more confidence in the situation than what we originally had. But being 80 yards away, like he said, we heard, the woods wake up, birds go to chirping, squirrels it seemed like there were 100 squirrels where we were. So where he says you kind of get numb to it, I thought every squirrel was a deer. I was just convinced we were in that spot that the guard could not do whatsoever. And I was just like, man, we just got to keep watching. And we finally both got to this point where we're like, okay, what's the situation? And it wasn't, we were texting back and forth. What do you got going on? Do you see anything? Is that a squirrel, or is that a deer, or God knows what it is? And it got quiet. And all of a sudden, man, that doe blows. It wasn't 5 minutes later. You just heard, a buck was moving. You could just tell. And I texted Brayden. I was like, hey, is that a deer? And I didn't get a response back. And I'm like, uh-oh, this might be it. And sure enough, I'm just close enough. I hear the bow go off, and you can hear the bow just real quiet. And all of a sudden you just hear this thwack, right? Half a second later. And I'm just sitting there listening. I'm like, okay, he for sure, just hammered that thing. You can hear the diaphragm pop. You can hear the deer take off through the woods, and it sounded like he slid 30 yards through the leaves when he piled up. So I'm like trying to get down, trying to get everything packed up, trying not to lose stuff. Got down on the tree. We basically ran over like a child and was like, what happened? I think there would be, not that I don't have confidence in Brayden's abilities, but when you're like, well, did you hit him here? Did you hit him there? Did this happen? Did that happen? As someone who shot some deer with a bow, I'm like, you go through your checklist, right? And it's like, okay, man, as soon as I saw that broken arrow, though, my heart kind of, fluttered a little bit. I was like, oh man, I really, I think of all of us as bow hunters, we want pass-throughs, right? We went
Right.
we want the arrow to come out both sides and leave a massacre scene as it runs. And I was like, dude, I don't know. I just don't know. And he starts explaining it to me. We kind of put pieces together, and I said, let's just go get this thing. And I told him, I said, hey, turn your tracker on X just to give us a premise of where we've gone, where we've been, so we don't start doing the loop-de-loops on the blood trail.
Yeah.
And I don't know how far he went, but I mean, what was it, 50 yards maybe? So
something like that. Yeah. I don't know how
far he slid. He may have been done prior to that, but just hunting here in kind of the foothills of southern Indiana, you get a lot of terrain, and we've talked about that. All of us have talked about that numerous times. So, man, when it happened, it was just it was just a sense of pride. I was like, shoot, we have talked about this and we have worked so hard at doing this. So when he's the first one to punch the tag of 2022, a sense of elation, but a sense of pride, because not only did he pull it off, but all that hard work that we put in over the last 12 months together is just really coming together, and you can see it time and time again. Every time we go in the woods, nothing comes back empty-handed. There may not be a deer in the truck, but we sure are ready to go shoot the next one.
I bet, man, that thing had a body on it. The picture that he sent me, I was like, "Oh my God!" I hope that you didn't have to drag that thing very far.
We did.
Oh man! I hope you had a deer cart or something.
Yeah, it felt like we got in a street fight. The rest of the day just so sore. But yeah, no, it was. Thankfully, we got to use some logging roads and stuff. If he was, just going up and down ridges and stuff like that, it super sucked. But thankfully there was some flat ground, and the two of us just, grabbed an antler each and just kind of drug it out as hard as we could. Definitely rubbed off some fur on the way out. He was bald in a few places on his hips and his shoulders, but we got him out.
It. Yeah, I had a similar shot last year when I killed my buck. The shoulder, he was broadside. The shoulder closest to me was forward, but when I went through, I hit the opposite shoulder or leg, like you said. But when he mule kicked, he broke the arrow off, kind of like what you're talking about. And, dude, it was a bloody massacre. I mean, he didn't go 50 yards, and it was just sprayed up on both sides of the trees. I mean, like the path that he made for himself, because he didn't take no path. He ran through the thickest on this property. But I kind of know what you're talking about with that shot and that angle. But sounds like you didn't have no problem getting it in there. What kind of broadheads were you shooting?
Tech G5, which they're fixed plates, and really that's how I picked them, was because I wanted a forgiving broadhead. Like, I feel confident, shooting my bow and stuff, but I haven't been doing it for like years and years and years. So if, the moment got the best of me, or if, anything can happen out there, I wanted to make sure that if I did hit that front shoulder, I'd have a chance to go through it. And so that was, Phil actually sharpened them up for me. I guess it was like a week ago or something like that. So those things were ready to rock. And I was pumped about how, the bow set up, the arrow set up, and all that end up playing out. And actually yesterday, my Vector custom shop arrows showed up. So I was like, a couple days after, a real nice arrows show up, but that's all right. I'll use those for the rest of the season.
I'll say you got a couple
what those things would have done.
Oh, I guarantee it. But you still got a couple doe tags in your pocket to punch there for the rest of the season.
Yeah. Gonna punch one out at deer camp for sure.
Absolutely. I can't wait for that. I've looked. I know it's far out, but I've kind of looked ahead on the forecast, and it looks pretty money. We're talking highs in the low 50s, lows in the 30s ish. Might be a terrible time to be sleeping in a tent if you're somebody, but I'm going to weather through it because I'm ready for that. And hopefully that pre-rut's kicking off when we're there. I could see somebody actually probably getting it done just like you did. But
Dude, that'd be epic. I'd love that.
For sure. I wanted to talk to you. You mentioned it a little bit earlier, and I know that you had a big discussion on it on Go Wild about those abnormal winds that hurricane created as our season opened up in Indiana. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. And that's been a big learning point, like, not just for this hunt, but just for like in general. And the question was like, how could a major storm system down south impact, deer hunting somewhere up north? We're in Indiana, but obviously it impacted the weather. And it basically became a discussion about like understanding abnormal wind, how abnormal one wind or another is going to affect deer behavior and stuff like that, which, simplifying it down, instead of it being like Hurricane Ian or a major storm system, like anytime the wind is going in an abnormal direction, it would suck to not be able to go hunt because, you don't have a place to go. And so it kind of became like, all right, well, they're moving this way during this wind, maybe they're going to be moving this way because of that wind. And, food sources here, water's there, travel corridor, this, that, like whatever it ends up being, like thinking about, on your camera, when you're getting a picture of a deer, which way are they facing? What's the wind doing? What's the moon phase during that time? And like, okay, piecing together more of that puzzle than originally we were. It was more of like, for me anyway, just like kind of taking inventory of like, oh, okay, cool. That's a great deer. This is a great deer. Usually, okay, they're coming in from this way or coming out that way, but not zooming out of like, okay, where did they come from more than likely on the map, and breaking down the topography a little bit more. And so that ultimately, like that discussion kind of helped me and Phil think about like, okay, well, we hunt here on a south-southwest wind. Like, okay, then let's go to this area and explore what's going on down here. Okay, there's a creek bottom down here. More than likely you're going to be moving at the base of this ridge system. So, let's set up and orient ourselves to have a good shot, facing up at the ridge. This is before we knew about the log road. Like we didn't know those were there. They're on the map. They installed a bunch of the trails and stuff. Like we were following on X, like walking down the trail, and all of a sudden it's taking us off the trail. And we're on the trail, but the map, it's saying we're leaving the trail. We're like, what's going on? Like they must have changed everything back here. So it's totally different for those first couple stuff. But once we started figuring out how the deer were moving down there during that wind and this time of year, and kind of thinking through everything, it kind of became more clear. Once we saw more deer moving, and you just kind of going and hunting somewhere where we knew there were, allowed us to get in the ballpark and like start playing the game. The hardest thing, is getting in the game and like being around deer and being able to learn and piece together that puzzle, because you can only piece together so much with, e-scouting and, walking ground and stuff without seeing deer. Like once you start seeing deer move, especially during a specific type of wind, you can really start to pattern. And that's ultimately what we ended up doing out there. But I think the biggest takeaway is just, we're going to start working on our spots in kind of like a triangle. Like, okay, if this is for southwest, then this is going to north wind. This is going to be for, where it ends up being. So just kind of being a little bit more diversified in how we're setting up our spots and stuff, so that we don't have to, like we need to sit on the couch to not blow up a spot, waiting for the right wind. It's like, you can still get on those deer.
Yeah, for sure. You talk about getting in the game. It's not for lack of trying, but I have not been in the game yet this year. I've been out, I'm going to say 6 or 7, 8 times maybe already, mostly filming. I've been behind my bow once, solo trip along the river. But I've played the wind every time. I don't know what it is, but I don't know if you guys saw it on the DNR email a couple weeks ago, but some counties that surround my county, they're all dropping to a one-doe county because of EHD, and it's hitting really hard where I'm at. And I'm seeing the effects of that. Like I sat on this pinch point on the river, and that's the only time I've saw deer in the stand all year. I saw 5, and I actually saw a shooter that night on the other side of the river. But the river itself, it's usually a thing like you're not going to be able to cross it. Like it's not like the Ohio or anything like that, but most of the time you're not going to be able to cross it. I could have walked across it. And in fact, 4 does walked across it. If the river would have been a high or normal, these deer would have came right down this pinch point where I was at. But they veered off, went down in the river, across to the other side to some standing corn. And that's about it as far as my hunts go this year. It's been pretty bad, and it sucks because it's not for the lack of trying. Sunday night, we went with the neighbor, and we sat there, and we could hear this deer coming in. I mean, you could just hear it taking steps. We were in some really thick stuff, and you could just hear it taking steps and steps, and you couldn't even see it. I had both cameras rolling. I'm like ready for this deer to step out because he said, I'll shoot a doe. So I'm like ready for everything. And it probably was within 15 yards and we couldn't see it. That's how thick this stuff was. And all of a sudden this walnut dropped 30 yards and hit the ground, and that deer just bolted. So our wind wasn't great that night. It kept swirling on us a little bit because we were down in this bowl. But that's been my season summary so far. Has just been they've been sticking it to me pretty hard. But we've gotten a lot of crops coming out right now where I'm at. Like it seems like all of our places have been changing drastically in just the last couple of days. A piece that my neighbor Adam just picked up last week. It's mostly ag with like 3 patches of woods and 1 river bottom on it. And he's been seeing some nice bucks there. And he was like, dude, I see him. He passed on like a 130 10-pointer, had it underneath his stand. Of course, I wasn't with him that day, to film, which sucks. And he passed on it. And I go, why'd you pass on the 130? He said, well, because at 50 yards, there was a 160 standing there. I'm like, oh my God. So we're getting stuff ready. We went back the next day, didn't see a deer. It's just like one of those things. But now where we were at, it was all bean fields. And they were taking the beans out today. He sent me a picture from his trail cam of the combine out there. So I don't know how that's going to affect that certain spot, but I got a couple places I haven't even been to yet. I'm kind of saving them. I'm kind of keeping them in my back pocket. Like let's not go in there, bust a spot out early October, especially the one place that I'm talking about. It's known for, late October, early November, just hardcore Midwest whitetail action, really. And I'm just kind of keeping it in my back pocket. I haven't went in there. To be honest with you, I haven't been in there at all. Like I don't even have trail cams in there, and I've been hunting this place for 18 years. And you know how hard that is not to go in there and do that. But I think it's going to benefit me later on. There's a little bit of livestock in the front of it. It's 45 acres with a bottom in it with a little creek running through it. But I haven't been in there, and the people that have permission to be in there too, we kind of have a mutual agreement. There's 2 big places, and it's like, hey, you take this, and we're going to take this, and we'll just kind of stay out of each other's hair, which is freaking awesome. But they even said, yeah, I seen your truck there yet or nothing? I'm like, nope, and it's not going to be there for a couple of weeks. And I told them about the deer camp and everything, and I was like, here coming up, I'll be there. But right now, it's still got standing corn on the north and southeast side, so we still have ag standing. So they're probably using that bottom for just a big bedding area, basically. And I'm just going to let it fester up until there's action, basically. But how about you, Phil? What's your early season been like?
Yeah, that's man, there's a little bit of anxiety, and I have to realize we're only 2 weekends in, so it's kind of one of those things like okay, there's a little bit of relief. Brayden shot a buck, so we're that kind of alleviates a little bit of the pressure. However, I think we've had really good sits. I think we've seen a lot of good things. We got a lot of great intel, so our confidence is pretty darn high. I think the biggest part is just getting in and closing the deal. I mean, I think that's everybody's big thing, but the movement has been good. The movement's been consistent. We've got 3 or 4 hammers that are absolutely waiting for somebody to shoot them. So we'll see how that goes potentially this weekend. But it's kind of one of those things. It's like, I want to play it safe. I don't want to just go in there and blow it up. But it's hard to pass up. So we'll see. If it's feeling good, I think we'll probably crawl in there and see what we can do. But if not, we'll just wait to that last week in October and go in there and do what we need to do. So that's the weekend last year that we saw. Held actually, it was the week that'd be a week early because I forgot I was in West Virginia on Halloween weekend last year. But so we got some stuff going. But the beginning of our season, I think, has been really good. It's just kind of getting your momentum rolling and kind of figuring some things out. But we're definitely in and amongst them. So now it's just kind of getting them. I told Brayden, I said, you know what the hardest part about bow hunting is? It's not finding the deer; it's getting close enough to the deer to shoot them.
Yeah.
And that's just the biggest part. But my anxiety is definitely more excitement than it is nervousness. That's for sure. I mean, we just have such good stuff going on that you want it to happen. You want to get here. You want to get here. You want to get here. And sometimes you just got to lay back and just kind of let the woods do what the woods need to do. And then you go in and take advantage of it when you can. So, but I mean, like I said, we haven't had a bad sit yet. We haven't had a bad conversation. The wind last weekend obviously was weird. We've covered that now, between the three of us. But I think it pushed us to be better hunters. I think it pushed us to be better predators, and I think it pushed us to just kind of drop everything that we had and just almost start over. We were at a festival here pretty close to town, and we sat down while we ate some fair food. And we're going through Onyx, just like mulling it over, trying to figure out what are we going to do? What are we going to do? How are we going to do this? How are we going to get there? What are your thoughts? What are we going to do? And I remember Brayden's wife going, "Oh my gosh, there's a lot more to this than I thought."
Well, it sounds like they're good. You guys were good enough to figure something out. You did something right.
And man, going in blind to a place like that, and to see what we saw, not once but now twice, and to close the deal. Everybody's looking for credibility, right? And that, in my heart, at least, that added to our credibility through and through. It made me feel good that a little bit of the imposter syndrome has healed itself up. I'm sure it'll come back, but I definitely feel like we're hunters, and so chasing deer and shooting them, that a peak of confidence is always a good thing. So I definitely think we've got it going on right now. So we'll see how we do in these next coming weeks, and we've got some super fun plans for deer camp that I think we're going to push, and I think we got a lot of fun plans in the works for sure. So we'll see.
That's awesome. Sounds like Phil. Sounds like you got a cameraman now.
What do you mean?
I'll just be hanging out. I'll just be in the stand.
Yeah, with Brayden. We need to get him hooked up. We'll get him there, and I think if we can pull the trigger on at least one of the big boys, that I think that if we could have that thing videoed, that'd be a good one to show a whole lot of people.
Yeah, I think people would like to watch that. That's for sure.
I think people would like to watch that. So, I've got my stepbrother in the tree with me this season, and I don't know if he could take a picture, let alone take a video. So we're just going to let him sit there and actually, to be honest, if we go into the spot we're talking about, I may leave him at the truck just to keep it safe. Love him to death, but we can't ruin this one.
So talk about that a little bit. I know you've mentioned it before. I've heard Brayden talk about it on Uncensored, but how you talk about it already, kind of being a challenge, or you've talked about mentoring people on here before. Is this one a little bit harder than the other ones?
As far as like my stepbrother mentoring?
Yeah, because it's like his first year.
He has the desire to learn, but he has zero knowledge. This is brand new to him. So is it harder? Maybe a little bit, because I don't know that he has the passion. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I just don't. Man, I took my brother-in-law last year, right? I shot a good buck in front of him at 7 yards. I shot a doe off of the ground, sitting on our butts in the mountains of West Virginia. I set him up on a doe, and he shot her at 60 yards after we watched her bed for 2 hours. In my opinion, if you don't have the absolute just drive to go out and shoot deer after seeing that kind of stuff, you don't like it. And then that's okay. That's the biggest part. So with Owen, I think it's just determining, am I passionate about it? Is this what I want to do? Remember, we were talking about lifestyle hunter.
Yeah.
Right? Is this who I want to be? Or do I want to do this? I kind of was busting his balls a little bit because the night before the last time he hunted with us, he went to the football game and stuff like that and didn't get to my house until about 11 o'clock at night. And I said, man, I hate to be this way, but we got to be up at 4. You're either going to go hang out with your friends or you're going to be a hunter at this time of year. And it's okay, whichever one you choose. Right. However, if you're going to be a hunter with me, it's game time, right? This is my game day, right? Yeah,
for sure.
And so it hasn't been more difficult. He's willing to learn. He's willing to kind of do the goofy stuff that we've done. He's willing to listen. I appreciate Brayden. We did some little different game plan. Brayden's taking him aside and kind of explaining some things. This is what we're looking for. This is what we're doing. So I appreciate that. And so it hasn't been more difficult. It's just his dad doesn't hunt. His grandpa doesn't hunt. His mom's from close to New York City, different things. It's not their lifestyle. Right. I guess they're not hillbillies like the rest of us are. And they want to go hang out in the cold woods. But so it's not a bad thing. It's just, or it's not harder. It's just creating that foundation, creating a foundation of safety, creating a foundation of passion. Will it work? Maybe. He's got all the, as I told him, I said, there is no greater person, in my opinion, or greater people to be with than me and Brayden, because it's just what we do. That's us. And it's not like, hey, we're going to take you hunting once or twice a year and you're just going to sit there and play on your phone. We want him to be in and amongst them with us. We want him to have the opportunities that we have. And we're happy to watch him shoot the deer that we found, So it's not one of those things. It's just, I think once he sees his first deer get shot, that's going to be your telltale. I think he's going to be excited about it. We're just going to have to kind of wait and see a little bit. So, but like I said, it's been a lot of fun. And I just love teaching guys and kind of showing them the ropes. So it doesn't bother me if he hates it. It doesn't bother me if he loves it. It's just been one of those things to kind of, do you instill the passion, or does he go, okay, I'm good. This is what I want. And like I said, it's okay either way. It's just kind of the name of the game. It is for, obviously it gets our goat, but it may not get his. So it's just kind of the way it goes.
Yeah. And like you said, being around you two, how old is he? How old is your
14. He is, he's a freshman in high school. So,
in that age, hanging out with you two guys, you're probably just hanging out, you're game planning, that sort of thing. You're staying out of trouble. You know what I mean? As a 14-year-old kid, you can get in a lot of trouble, especially being out late with your friends and that sort of stuff. And I'm sure hanging with you guys and then going hunting, that could probably make him a better person and keep him out of trouble at a young age.
Well, I think another big part of it for me too is hunting teaches you a different lifestyle than a lot of other people want to chase. And it's a discipline, but it's also something, it's a huge discipline, but it's also something that you don't get to do those other things. We don't have money to buy drugs because we keep buying arrows and bows and tree saddles and all that stuff, right? That's what I keep telling him. But I think the next thing to it is, as a young man, or as a boy, we'll just call him, right? Becoming a young man, I told him, I said, me and Brayden aren't going to treat you any different. We're not going to speak any different. We're not going to act any different, because this is important for you to learn. Because if you don't learn it now and you get in your 20s and you go to work, people are going to eat your lunch day in and day out. This is just the way life kind of goes, right? And so it's been good for not only for him to learn how to kind of hang with the guys, but it's also been good from a maturity standpoint. So, like I said, we'll see how it goes, though.
For sure. So for the rest of the 2022 season, Brayden, what else do you got lined up for yourself? I know I'm pretty jealous, but aren't you and Derek going out west to Nebraska chasing some mule deer?
So I'm gonna be the dude behind the camera for Derek out in Nebraska. That's the end of November. Gonna go chase muleys. Hopefully, I think it's a muzzleloader muley season out there. So we're gonna do that, and then potentially going out to Virginia with Chris Paul from XP to go tree a bear with some dogs and shoot a bear. So that's not
awesome.
something I mean, kind of, kind of out of left field. He was just, we become friends, and he's like, dude, you should come down here, blah, blah, blah. So it's like 3 or 4 days after we get back from Nebraska. And if we don't end up extending that trip out there for me to hunt a little bit in South Dakota, I think I'm going to go out there. Me and Derek, actually, I think are going to go out there. But for the rest of, whitetail season for me, it's just, we're going to do our best to kill some does out at the farm. We're helping out a farmer on some property. Just, basically they see deer as a nuisance, and, we like to shoot deer. So we're going to try to kill some deer out there and help them out. And, I'm just going to be following Phil around for sure, trying to make sure that he fills his tag and help him drag his deer out and whatever I can. So, it's a weird feeling being tagged out, right now. I wouldn't have guessed it. It's weird. Like, you work so hard and you put in so much time and effort and money and all this stuff, and like you just feel like it's never going to happen until it was surreal. Like when he was stepping out and gave me a shot, like it didn't feel real. So I'm kind of I'm excited to be doing the rest of the season and doing whatever I can, but it's weird to not be chasing bucks anymore for the rest of the season. So
that's a good problem.
That's what I got planned. Maybe do a little fishing. Yeah, going fly fishing tomorrow with Jacob and Derek for half the day over at Otter Creek. So that'll be fun. But
yeah, absolutely.
Always into.
What about you, Phil? Besides chasing Indiana whitetails, you got anything else lined up?
Man, not right now. With having a baby back in May, that kind of put a damper on doing anything else. So we're just going to chase a bunch of whitetail. That's what the idea is. Like you said, we've got that farm that basically the farmer's like eradicate. So we got a list of people lined up to go, yeah, I'll come shoot a deer, or I'll do this, or I'll do that. And so that's it. But now, like I said, I want to definitely put all my efforts into shooting a big buck this year. I think kind of getting Brayden's out of the way has been, I've said it before, it's a little bit of an alleviation, but now it's applying the pressure to me to close the deal. So I definitely want to be one of our guys. So we'll see how it goes. But that's it for the rest of the season. We'll see how far we can go with it and hopefully close the deal. But nothing big on the horizon at this point, other than deer camp.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate you guys coming on tonight and having the first little tailgate talk of the season. Brayden got one down, so we got to hear a deer down story already, and we're only 11 days into the season so far. So for him to get it done that early is badass in my book. And congratulations to you, buddy. And tell everybody where they can find you at on social media, Brayden.
I'm on Go Wild and LinkedIn. That's pretty much where I'm at. Just Brayden Ware on both platforms.
Awesome. Well, everybody go check him out. And like I say on here every week, if you don't have Go Wild, go check it out. You'll love it. What about you, Phil?
Yeah, for the most part, I'm saying Go Wild only. Working on revamping an Instagram page at phil.hunts. And but hopefully we'll get some deer pictures put up there soon. But just wanted to build that. But other than that, Go Wild is where you'll see the rest of our shenanigans for the rest of the year. So that's what it'll be.
Well, go if you guys are on Go Wild, I'm sure you probably already follow Brayden, but go check out Phil and what everything he's got going on. But appreciate you guys coming on. Go follow Blue River Bow Hunting on Go Wild and Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and all those good things. Go subscribe on the YouTube for us and give us a rate and review on the podcast. But you guys have a good rest of your week, and good luck to anybody getting in the woods.
Sir, thanks, buddy.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course, my mouse is stuck.